According to the most prolific public reseller, Tech and Sports, reselling should be viewed as a race to scale, not a race to the bottom. Today we're going to define both of those terms and talk about how it applies to the Pokemon market. So, traditionally, a race to the bottom is a very common occurrence within the Pokemon space, and the best example I can provide is when a brand new set comes out, like Ascended Heroes, for example, the biggest chase card from that set will sell in PSA 10 for an extraordinary premium for the first copy, or first 1 to 3 copies that hit the market will really command a severe premium that might not again be realized for a substantial amount of time or ever in some cases. Now, people's reasoning for this is initial demand and hype usually drives prices of that PSA 10 in its initial release sky high. Then, as more copies become publicly available to the market, the price cools down a lot. And then eventually, in the distant future, when raw, ungraded copies are no longer as common in gradable condition, prices start to increase again. That's a pretty common trend that we've seen over time, and this can pan out over the course of several years sometimes. That's a race to the bottom, particularly the part where every copy is selling for less and less subsequently. That's chasing the bottom or trying to catch the falling knife in some examples, right? Whatever your verbiage is, that's what we are best to avoid in Tech and Sports' opinion. Now, his counterexample to that would be a race to scale. What that means is you're trying to grow your business to the greatest extent possible as quickly as possible instead of focusing on shoveling your way out of items as they decline in price. Now, racing to scale can look a couple of different ways, and I'll talk about the way I've implemented it in my own business in this video as well. But basically, you're trying to build your business as large as possible so that the sheer size of it is acting as a little bit of insulation from market up and downward trends. So, how I've been able to pursue a race to scale in my business, and in some instances, I think that this might have prevented me from getting as high of a top line revenue number in 2025 as I possibly could, because I could have just been selling more in certain opportunities. But what I focused on is, instead of buying a bunch of cards that would customarily be bought at $5, grade them through the bulk tier at PSA, and then offload them somewhere around $40 or $50 in PSA 10, I have instead been focusing on buying the most expensive cards that I can to grade in PSA 10, and I'm really trying to focus in on value density. So instead of having 3,000 listings with my average sale price being $40, I'm being okay with having a store somewhere around the $1,000 range, but in 2025, my average sale price was somewhere around $75, which isn't bad. That means that on average, when somebody clicks the buy button, I'm getting $75 in my account, and that's kind of nice. Now, some items have offset that, when I'm selling $1.99 raw singles, whether that's a VMAX or some kind of ultra rare GX card from the Sun and Moon era, what have you. Subsequently, I also sold cards for as expensive as $10,000 in 2025. And so that average sale price of $75 is aggregating all of that data. And obviously, you're just finding the mean of that price. Well, I'm continuing to pursue a higher and higher average sale price by continuing to buy the highest quality items that I can, instead of just intaking absolutely everything and anything that might be able to turn me a small margin. The downside of that is I'm not doing quite as much volume as I might otherwise be doing, which, that has some drawbacks. The algorithm definitely favors activity. And so when I'm focusing on these big value density plays, I'm not getting as many listings fired off per day as I may otherwise. And so that's not necessarily optimal. But at the year's end, when I see such a huge average sale price, and for reference, I think in 2024, my average sale price was something like $34. So I beyond doubled that. So my idea is working, and I just need to continue grinding this out until I'm able to be operating these high quality cards at great scale. And another consideration for this is the higher quality the item, the more desirable it is, broadly speaking. So instead of being in the hyper competitive market of $40 or $50 slabs, I'm trying to orient myself somewhere in the multi-$100 range on average. And there's less people that can afford to do that in volume. So every time my store grows, I am getting rid of a humongous chunk of what would be otherwise competitors that are trying to battle for the buy box, right? Battle for that first listing in the best match sort on eBay. And, I think that this is nice because, again, you're also not only weeding out some competition, but when you're looking at this from a sales perspective, that also enables you to weed out some of like the riffraff in terms of flaky buyers, people who are just hitting you up with unserious offers, or who purchase the item and then immediately want to cancel it, things like that. They kind of get canceled out because the type of person who's selecting buy now on an $800 PSA 10 has a totally different mindset usually than someone who's clicking buy now on like a $30 or $40 PSA 10. And, in today's world, like a $30 or $40 PSA 10 is not quite the same type of card that it was a year or two ago also. But with that said, it just kind of has this multifaceted, benefit to your store. And the greater scale you get, the more insulated you are from, again, like wary buyers. But it also helps you remain in serious business, and then also jumping over to like a business to business model instead of business to consumer. You're establishing like the types of people as your customers who might be doing business, like people who are trying to secure high value slabs for streams or giveaway prizes or whatever. The networking opportunity also is something not to sniff at when you're looking at like increasing value density while racing to a greater scale. So with that said, this is kind of my thinking and my perspective in Tech and Sports' take. It's a race to scale, not a race to bottom. But I would love to hear your guys' take down below on this same topic as well. How do you see this being a benefit to people's businesses, and how are you implementing this in your own? Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button on your way down to the comment section, and I will see you on the next one.